Hi there, welcome to the Kenny Veach M-Cave case mystery. Looks like we've got a little bit of conflict that needs to be addressed. I need to give a direct response as soon as possible. This video is more so in response to a user called Sun, who is defending Scott Natal, who has misunderstood my outlook on the situation. Now, I might talk slow, tough shit. I'm talking slow because it's important and I want humans to understand every single word that comes out of my mouth and the full sentences in general. So hopefully people are listening, and more so Sun. I'm gonna read your comments, go over it, see what it's all about. I'll show you my response to the matter, okay? So it would be appreciated, Sun, and any other people in the background, just to watch along, listen in, and it will make more sense. Because unfortunately, once again, there has been another misunderstanding with humans, okay? So for those watching this live premiere, whether it's long or short, share your thoughts, opinions in the live chat box right hand side of the screen. If you want to leave comments down below, your responses to the matter, do so. Down below you'll find a pinned comment by me if you want to support this channel by choice. And top right corner of the screen where the I symbol is, if you click on that, you'll be able to catch up on the recent videos, okay? The order of how we're going to do things today. We're going to look at the comments possibly in general as well, just to see what other people have had to say, and then we'll get on to Sun's comment, okay? I guess by reading the additional comments by people, we'll provide a bit of backstory and explain the reasoning why other people are suspicious of Scott Natal and the supposed nature of planting evidence and items. Now, as a brief backstory for this video and the resistance that's followed by this odd individual here or there, whether they come from Kenny Veach community or Dylan Rounds community, I only remember seeing them in the Dylan Rounds case community, so there's that there, correct me if I'm wrong. But it's just because the last video that I did was basically giving an update from Scott Natal's brother, right, responding back to these claims. Not from me, but from what other people have said, trying to set the record straight, but also providing an update for upcoming hikes or searches in the future. That's important as well. I don't see anyone else providing news updates regarding what's currently happening or what's previously happened. I'm aware some people may have tried in the past and things were ignored. All I can say is, if that applies to you, Jeff Clark, where you've tried reaching out to Scott Natal in the past and he didn't respond, don't be surprised, it's happened to me as well. Not all the time, but it's happened here and there. Maybe Scott is busy, maybe in your mindset he's hiding something, but nevertheless, the reason why it worked out in recent time, Jeff Clark, and it can apply to other people, is because Les Natal was around in the comment section and he responds back more than Scott Natal. So maybe if you want to try and reach out, Jeff Clark, reach out to Les Natal, the brother of Scott Natal, if you want to, right? So with that little backstory out the way, an individual doesn't like the last video that I did because it makes it seem like I'm creating misinformation or something. It will make more sense when we read the full comments out. Let's get into it right now and don't go anywhere. Here we are. Now, I will adjust it to the newest comments. There's Sun's comment. I will respond back to you, Sun, shortly. I just got to go through some of the other stuff, okay? Now, the title of my video at the time was called something along the lines of M-Cave hiker accused of planting items or evidence within the hike, within the case. Something along the lines of that, okay? I mean, whether you call it hard-hitting or negative news, the word accused. Now, in life, when it comes to news articles and celebrities or whoever being accused of this and that, they're not always found guilty. Sometimes, I don't know how often, but let's just put it, sometimes people are innocent and found innocent at the end of the day, and then that's it. So if I titled it along the lines of Scott Natal found guilty of planting this or that, well, that sounds a lot worse and it paints a negative picture on Scott. But to say M-Cave hiker accused, well, it's just highlighting what other people have labelled Scott as. A person causing confusion and misdirection within the case. That's not coming from me. That's coming from what other people have said. Understand multiple different perspectives. If you've been around the Dylan Rounds case and community, you should know how I work by now. Okay? So, let's start from the bottom. We got Atari here. Just, there we go. Adjust that. Let's see what Atari has to say. Sorry, I won't be able to make it to your live stream. I have not written any new comments about Scott, but in the past I have. Right. I don't think anyone has accused him of planting evidence, as evidence meaning is that which tends to prove or disprove something, ground for belief, proof, something that makes plain or clear an indication or sign. This is very interesting because, arguably speaking, if Atari is agreeing that she has been suspicious of Scott in the past, well, Atari is backtracking here because in the past, when I did mention what Atari mentioned, Atari said, I've never said that. I've never said that. No. So is that a form of backtracking? I wonder. But nevertheless, let's just move on. It was mentioned that Scott is highly suspicious of planting objects, which is far different than as evidence. But this is the thing, Atari. You can have objects which appear as evidence, because look at the tent and sword, how it created possible false theories. Oh, tent and sword, that must be Kenny Veach, some people said. Oh, tent and sword, that might be the sword, killer, welding, killer individual hideout spot when taking out Kenny Veach. So, a supposed object planted out there with the possible intention of creating some kind of false evidence, false narrative, false story, you can see how it snowball effects, right? So it's under control when it comes to language and wording. So what Atari is getting at here is, in the past, she didn't say Scott Natal has planted evidence out there, but Scott Natal planted things out there to cause some kind of confusion for other reasons. But to be honest, I think, just in general, even if you planted items out there, not as fake evidence, but just items out there, that in itself is just as bad as planting evidence. Regardless, at the end of the day, whether it's evidence or not, planting stuff out there is very unnecessary, and it can lead to false evidence. It can lead to false leads. So at the end of the day, it's basically the same thing, although the wording is very different. At the end of the day, the means and the outcome can be of the same conclusion, okay? So Atari is basically saying she's been suspicious of Scott Natal in the past for planting stuff out there. And to be honest, the word planting does equal foul play. Planting evidence, planting items at a scene of a crime, it is all, in a way, it's a form of planting evidence. It's kind of the same thing, to be honest. Each word can have a different meaning, but the outcome and the aim is basically the same. You know, any normal person in the right mind wouldn't plant anything out there. Maybe the only thing that they would leave out in the desert would be some kind of memorial in honor of Kenny Veach, let's just say, right? Like Jay Silverheels, like Jay Chuck. Now, they recorded their footage. I don't know if it's still up on their channel, but they did in the past. I can understand there was some general public who were very confused and said there's footage of coins found at the mineshaft. They must be Kenny Veach's. And when I saw that, I thought, oh, God, these people are misinformed, but it's understandable. General public out there, when they saw somebody else's hike footage, whether it was Jay Chuck's, whether it be Scott Natal's, whoever, there were coins found near to the mine shaft. There was in 2014, found by Search and Rescue, 22nd of November 2014. But there was also coins found there many years later. And people were thinking they were the same coins as mentioned in the Kenny Veach case. but they were wrong. But it's understandable why people would be confused because it looks like the same thing. Items put there by Kenny? No, they were put there by Jay Silverheels. Jay Silverheels documented it on his channel. Is his video still up on YouTube? I'm not sure. He had a habit of deleting things at times, which is very unfortunate, right? You've got to be very careful in the desert, not just for your own safety, your life, and if there was anyone else around you, if you was taking them on a hike, responsibilities there. You got to take care in the desert and kind of respect the environment, respect the terrain and the laws as well. Okay? And if for whatever reason you are going to plant or place, we need to get into that, Atari. There's a difference between placing something and planting something. Planting normally equals foul play. You've planted evidence. You've planted drugs on somebody so they get in trouble. There's like evil intentions, gains from it. You're planting something on a person so they get in trouble. You're planting a seed in the crop which could contaminate everything, metaphorically speaking and literally. Okay? But placing an item. I placed a plank of wood on the ground. I placed the football on the table. I placed my bottle on the bed. I placed my head on my pillow. That's normal. But if you say, I planted some unusual substances in another person's home. I've planted a skull with a hidden message on the back of it. Yeah, there's a difference, Atari. As said, we need to understand language and wording. I know other people fall short there, but we need to make it very clear, okay? So Atari has made it very clear as to her thoughts on Scott Natal in the past, that she doesn't think it's evidence, but she does think things were planted, where basically planted is foul play and fake evidence is foul play. It's the same thing at the end of the day. Atari did backtrack on herself, though, in the past by saying, I never mentioned this. I was never suspicious of Scott Natal. I never said he planted anything. But now you're saying you did say that. So you didn't, but you did, but you didn't, you did. Yeah, this is where things get a little bit messy, but I understand, Atari, where things are at, so don't worry. Anything else that needs to be mentioned here? Evidence would prove it was indeed Kenny's and that Scott planted Kenny's belongings. I made a video expressing my concern of an incident where Really Robin was supposed to hike up there on the same day as Scott, but Really Robin's father mentioned he was attacked and thrown off the cliff. I was respectful to Scott that when he questioned, but no response. So here's the thing, Atari. Okay, I don't know if you're aware, but that Really Robin reached out to me before even hiking out there and told me he was going to return back to that mine shaft. He was going to replace the skull or put it back there. He was also going to reveal the hidden entrances into the mine shaft, which lead you on a mysterious journey, possibly to the M Cave. He was going to record it all and then upload it online. But you know what Robin said, Atari? Even before he set out there, even before he supposedly got injured, he told me that if anything goes wrong or if I don't upload in time or I go quiet, it's likely because I've been attacked or something bad's happened to me. It's very coincidental, isn't it? Very convenient timing. So this Robin account can tell a mysterious tale, whether it's true or not, hype things up, but also throw in a little clause in the background, almost like a form of scapegoat, that if he doesn't respond or if he's full of BS and doesn't provide any updates or any footage, well, the excuse is, I went out there, but, you know, something bad happened to me. And then what happens afterwards? Silence, radio silence, and then the Robin account reached out, but in the, the ownership of the father, claiming, hi, I'm Really Robin's father. I'd like to inform you Robin had an injury on his hiking trip. He was pushed off a mountain. Oh, bloody Nora. Yeah. What a load of bollocks. Why can't humans pick up on the patterns and cycles? Okay? You know, Kenny Veach said what he saw and what he experienced in the past. And then he set out there to record it. Whether Kenny Veach was telling the truth or bullshitting, at least Kenny Veach actually went out there, recorded it, and uploaded it afterwards. This supposed Really Robin account basically said, I'm going to go out there, reveal the secrets, share it with you, but if I don't upload in time, or you don't hear from me again, something bad's happened. And it was so convenient that he didn't have to upload a video. He probably never went out there, didn't record it, and was able to get away with it because the excuse was, if you don't hear from me, something bad's happened. What a great scapegoat, right? It's pathetic. And has anything happened since? No. Has that fake Robin account uploaded some videos here and there, cryptic countdowns? Yeah. What a waste of time. Talking about dragging it out. It's silly. You got the truth, reveal it then. Well, I can't because I'll be in danger. Okay then, well don't drip feed it then. Don't leave trails of breadcrumbs. That's just teasing. Really Robin's, the fake account, approach is no different than Sharon Pilgrim with the mind games and the let's play a game of hot or cold. If you get close to the truth, I'll tell you. This is very exciting, as worded by her. Very unusual behaviour. This is not a game. It may be a mystery. It might be very interesting and it could be creepy. And for some, entertaining. But still, there are formal procedures along the way. Whether something is planted out there, whether something is evidence or not, there's a form of severity behind it. Just like how people bullshitting about either being experts or saying that they're going to go out there and then they don't. Miscommunication, lying, BS. Okay? So it basically, to put it in short, Atari, this fake Robin account already had it planned that he was going to go out there, but he did say before he went out there, if he doesn't respond back or he goes a bit silent, it's because he's been injured, been taken out. Yeah. Scapegoat, simple as. Now, let's move on. Also, in that same video I made, I asked, why is there a profile of what looks like Scott but named Robin Dale? Really Robin, two instance, two word Robin. Also, does he know Kenny? Jeff Clark has his own reasons, not sure if anything he mentioned recently would spark a comment by Scott's brother. Another person in case was suspicious as well as him trying to make money to go to family. Well, this is the thing, Atari. The only reason why Scott's brother responded is because I was the catalyst in getting an answer. Just like how WarLike Raf was the catalyst for getting answers out of the real Really Robin in a real Q&A. You remember that? I was the only person, the only channel to document it. All on the channel. All up on the channel. Not been censored, not been removed, still there. Okay? Let's see what else. I was just wondering, why now? Why not Scott respond? It's been years now that all of us have asked these things. I think Scott is a great hiker and has some balls to do what he does. I also admire his art, but for me personally, those questions still unanswered. It would be good to at least put that at rest so it's not talked about again. My hope is that it's not to go in circles, and that there will be no disagreements continuing to go on. Oh no, Atari, there will always be disagreements, okay? I do monitor human behavioural patterns, and there's a lot of impetuous people out there, so it is a bit of a lost cause. The main thing is we still have a person who is missing, yet unnecessary items have popped up on that mountain, leaving mysteries to distract us from finding Kenny. But this is the thing, there's not enough evidence to say that they are on purpose distracting us from finding Kenny, right? There's not enough evidence to say that they're unnecessary items, right? I mean, Atari, you were quite invested in Robin's rock and that carved symbol on it, right? So why do we have to diminish the skull? Or more so, why do we have to diminish the sword intent, but not that carved rock marking? Why do we hype that up, but not this? See, this is why WarLike Raf puts everything into perspective. WarLike Raf covers all the mysteries, or at least tries to. Okay, some will diminish them, people will reject, and some will just minimalize them. But I'm trying to look at each one equally. and put a level of focus into each one, whether it be reinforcing or debunking. And arguably speaking, it was debunked that Robin's Rock M symbol carving, okay? But as for the sword intent, that can't really be debunked. See, this is the thing, Atari. Before Scott Natal went out there, you had Sean Horlacher, you had Jeff Clark, 2015, 2016. They didn't go to that area where Scott Natal went in 2021 or 22. Now, just imagine if Sean Horlacher in 2015, 1 year after Kenny's disappearance, roughly speaking, if Sean Horlacher went to that rock formation and found the sword intent. Surely that would make you think, maybe this does link more to Kenny Veach and it's not an unnecessary item. Or would people then turn on Sean Horlacher and say, oh, well, Sean must have planted that there because he's the first one out? I wonder, right? Even before Scott Natal went there, just before that, it wasn't much difference in between. It wasn't that long apart. Jay Silverheels was really the only one besides Scott Natal who was facing in that direction, not up close, but did take a photo over in that direction of that rock formation where that sword intent was. Now, if Jay Silverheels went to that rock formation, if he had an inclination to do so, and if he found the sword intent, well then it would mean Scott Natal isn't guilty for it, right? I shouldn't say guilty for it, isn't accused of it, okay? Do you get what I'm saying, right? There's been other opportunities in the past who've, with people who have been in the area, may have been somewhat close to it, but they had no reason or idea or thoughts to go that way or to get closer to that rock. But if they did, what could they have revealed? Would the sword intent have been there? Yes or no? I would say the earlier hikers went to that area and found it, the closer it is to linking with Kenny Veach. Now, if it's later on, but still before Scott getting there, and the sword intent was there, maybe not as relevant to Kenny Veach, but not responsible by the hands of Scott Natal. You get what I'm saying? There's been unfortunate missed opportunities. It's that what if. So I would say the items found out there in the desert, as obscure and strange as they may be, you can't say they're unnecessary, okay? There's not enough proof to say that. When it comes to distracting us from finding Kenny Veach, well, it's not really distracting us from finding Kenny Veach because there is some kind of material here and there to suggest he may be alive. How much evidence has been found since to suggest Kenny is out in the desert? Not as much. I mean, you can say the crystal skull, you could say the sword intent. Would that be enough to say, well, that's to do with Kenny? Well, as for the DNA part, you can't really, that's just not obtainable or possible. So you could argue and say there's items out there which may not have enough strong appliance to Kenny Veach, but neither does it have enough strong appliance to say it's completely irrelevant. So it's like in the middle. It's a mystery within a bigger mystery. Now, I'll move on. Jeff Clark, when he starts the M Cave mystery by stating that he knows an insider who helped Kenny fake the loop hike video, it was done 10 miles south of the actual location, everything else is suspect, and then losing a key piece of evidence like that sword, no thanks. Okay, Jeff Clark, if you are here, Jeff Clark, listening, just got a quick question. Do you have the video and timestamp of when Scott Natal claimed he has insider information? That would be very helpful because then we could take a look at it. I could try and spread awareness on the matter and see if Scott Natal or Les Natal can respond to it. Because if we actually have proof and evidence that Scott Natal appeared that he had more knowledge than anyone else, well, then that needs to be brought to light or at least brought back up, okay? So besides the false accusations of whether Scott planted items out there or not, if there is evidence to suggest that Scott mentioned, quoted here by Jeff Clark, well, then that needs to be brought up, okay? So Jeff Clark, if you know the video and the timestamp of where it came up in Scott's channel, let me know, and I will do a video covering it, okay? And I will reach out as well to try and get answers, right? Let me know. The bit about losing a key piece of evidence. Yes, Jeff Clark, that's what Scott Natal said in the past. And the only reason why he said that is because I asked. I was the catalyst in that situation. In recent time, though, when bringing it back up, asking, where did it go? Where was it lost? In the house, outside, wherever? Les Natal, the brother of Scott, said that it is still in Scott's possession somewhere. So that would make me think Scott has lost it, but he knows it's around somewhere in his house or near to him in proximity. So in the past he said he lost it, but now the brother of Scott is saying that it is somewhere nearby, I'm guessing. Maybe not the best answer, but at least we got some response. It's better than nothing. Now, moving on. GF says, I don't mind anyone making money off this case because it costs money to research and hike. If I ever qualify, I will monetize my channel. I am still in a walking boot with an aching foot after that rock hike, so getting paid money for this case is totally reasonable. Atari says, I only mention this as another person confronted him about it and no response. How is the sword evidence, though? Was it Kenny's? This is the thing. The sword could be evidence or it could be false evidence. Evidence is evidence, for the right reason or wrong. So foul play evidence, genuine evidence. If it's planted, it's foul play. Jeff Clark, response. I don't know if the sword was planted by someone, was owned by Kenny or was used to harm Kenny. Point is that if I found that item in that area, my first reaction would be to turn it over to the police for testing and investigation. After documenting it on here, so it doesn't just become another rumoured piece of evidence, the only reason I can see not to turn that in to police is if you knew it was planted and feared introducing false evidence into a police case. I would have done exactly the same with the original Crystal Skull if I found it back then. So one thing that Scott Natal supposedly tried to do when taking that sword away from the area, he said he originally was going to reach out to the Veach family and ask them about it. You know, have you seen this sword before? Is this Kenny's? And if they confirmed it, well, then that would be proof then. So supposedly attempts were made. But Scott Natal, I believe, said things didn't work out or wasn't able to reach out to the family. And that's where it ended there. So, yeah, unfortunate. Jeff Clark, yes, Sean was immediately sceptical about that sword being real. Well, being real, I mean, it is a real sword, it's a real object, but as for it being real to the case or true to the case, that's a mystery. Now, to say Sean was immediately sceptical about it, let's just be realistic that Sean Horlacker's behaviour did alter with time, with the whole spirituality and the politics and QAnon and the Telegram and the JFK rising from the dead, right? You got to think of credibility, okay? It depends when one went off the rails, okay? Atari said, what is more concerning is someone or a group of people playing games with an actual missing person's case. Also, people getting hurt in the process. It's all ridiculous. When you say people getting hurt in the process, what do you mean by that? Do you mean people getting hurt by false accusations being thrown about? Because if that's the case, I mean, you've participated in that in the past, okay? Not like with intent of evilness, but, you know, participating in it, right? I'm basically just bringing it all to surface level, to put it out there, just to look back on, reflect, and see if we can get any more answers, right? Because sometimes when you go over it or bring things up from the past, you eventually get an answer. And we've seen it on my channel in the past. That's why I'm doing it here, okay? But who has actually been hurt out there through the usage of foul play, right? See, in the past, when it came to the mineshaft and it was damaged, the ladder, the brace being removed, etc., there was suspicion. Was it sabotaged by a rogue hiker? Is someone out there to hurt others, to set up booby traps? In the end, wasn't the case. It was a group of guys in 2018 that admitted they broke the ladder by accident. They even recorded their footage and kept it privately. But then because of me constantly focusing on the mineshaft and referring back to it. Eventually, we got answers. They reached out to me. They shared the footage and it was resolved. It was debunked, that specific mystery. So no harm done there, or not like with intent. So, you know, you get what I'm saying? As for the crystal skull, has that harmed anyone? I mean, it might have led to many people scratching their heads with less hair now and headaches. After the tent and sword, no one really got hurt there. Unless you're talking about the false accusations, but people do participate in that, so they would come across as a hypocrite. Nevertheless, let's move on. What else do we have? Francis, they're trying to start... My God, leave Scott alone. He hasn't done anything. Now, I don't know if Francis was talking to me here or talking towards those that have called out Scott. I did ask, are you referring to me or the other people? Now, Francis never responded, so that's very unfortunate. Sun says, I agree. There are two of the most honest men I know. This is BS. Defamation of character. I'm reporting this Jeff Clark. So it looks like Jeff Clark is being reported as we speak by Sun. Now, Jeff Clark is a hiker within the Kenny Veach case, has been out there boots on ground long before Scott Natal, and has provided a lot of research in the case, some of it factually, other parts visually, as well as helping and assisting in debunking stuff. So if Jeff Clark was to be reported and his channel was taken down, that would be contributing to the demise of the Kenny Veach case and removal of key evidence within the case, which would be very unfortunate outcome for everyone involved in the case. So yeah, but you know, defamation, I mean, I've experienced that as well in other areas. We'll get onto that, son. Okay. Tommy, my opinion is based on so little known truths. Kenny Veach having a tent would make some sense. Yes, because he was supposedly camping out there. But carrying a sword would be an impediment to progress in the terrain. Yes, and we've never seen him use it before in past hikes. SB Vegas has shown us. I tend to think the tent and sword are just a coincidence left by some other hiker. Don't have much of an opinion on the tent and sword being planted, in that the sword was an unlikely choice for Kenny to be hiking there. So Tommy, although he may claim he's limited with knowledge on the case, he's worded this very well and very balanced, acknowledging that, you know, items are out there. It may not link to Kenny, but it doesn't mean to say they're planted in a foul play way. So that's good. That's a good comment. Now, as I said, unfortunately, no other hikers have documented the rock area where the tent was. Jay Silverheels was near the place before Scott Natal, but never went up close to the location to look because there was no reason to. But it would have helped massively. Okay? Oh yeah, I forgot about June. June says, are you saying he didn't go close enough to the sword to look at it, but he saw it? Should I laugh now or wait? Well, June, you can laugh at your own impetuous attitude, because what I've clearly said and documented in the past, and clearly documented on Jay Silverheels videos in the past, is Jay Silverheels was on like a mountain area, further from the rock formation on lower ground. There'd be no way you could see the tent and sword from that distance. But Jay Silverheels was on higher ground and took a photo overlooking the mountains and the canyon. And I saw in the distance the rock formation on lower ground because I could make it out. I couldn't see what was within because it's concealed from the side and on top. The only way you can look within it is if you're standing at the entrance, which means up close, or if you stood on top of the rocks looking down. It's like a little crevice, okay? It's quite tight and narrow. It creates a bit of a wind tunnel when Scott Natal was there. So there'd be no way of seeing it from a distance, and even high up from a distance. But Jay Silverheels was pointing in that direction with the camera, and I was simply saying that if Jay Silverheels on that hike before Scott Natal went closer to that area and went inside, if there was a reason to do so, I wonder what would have been there, a tent and sword or not. If no tent and sword was found there before Scott Natal's hike, then you could be more suspicious. But we'll never know, because no one ever went there nor documented it, so it's very unfortunate. So hopefully, June, when you reassess the situation, you'll be able to understand my comment. Now, moving on. Oh, we got Jay Silverheels! That's more like it, man. My brother and myself have instantly, on seeing this Sword in 10 video, did discuss a great lamps. If the sword could have been planted, I'll upload it later. It's a big issue. And I'll tell you what's a bigger issue, Jay Silverheels. At least the last time when I checked, you didn't upload a video on this. So hopefully by now you have, because it will be interesting to see. But I wouldn't be surprised, Jay Silverheels. I don't even know why I'm talking in third person. I know who I am. I wouldn't be surprised if Jeff Claw was the one responsible for planning that sword from his psychiatric hospital visit. Probably enabled the penguins to waddle in, secretly planning the sword themselves from the little backpack. Jeff Claw, we're on to you already, man. Don't hide. Now, if anyone's confused by this, that's just being sarcastic, messing around. I'm not being serious there, okay? Some people actually believe I'm being serious. Anyway, we got Glenn. Shout out Glenn. We got Jeff Claw. Why do people say Jeff Claw like a tiger's claw? It's Claw. Okay. Oh, are we doing some pronunciation class? Oh my God, the tables have turned on the US. We the people. Jeff Claw says he didn't imply anything. He made flat out claims that he knew someone who edited Kenny's loop hike video for him, and it was all faked 10 miles south near Gas Peak. When I asked for clarification and pointed out that of confirmation the landmarks is Kenny's video as being Joe May and Pitcher Canyon, he stopped replying. Those exchanges are still up on his videos. So, has it been brought up since? It's an unfortunate coincidence you could possibly highlight. Either Scott doesn't want to answer because he knows the truth and he doesn't want to admit it, or Scott Natal is just a busy person and gets distracted easily and can't respond back to everyone. Yeah, could be a 50-50 there. And so Jeff Claw and Jeffrey has responded to Jeff. Oh no, it's the battle of Jeffs. Again, another Jeff has showed up. Jeffrey says, which of Scott's video is that in? I went back and watched the first one where he started his search for Kenny Veach at Gas Peak. Maybe I missed it, but never heard him mention having insider information or see any comment he made to that effect. Maybe I missed it or was reviewing the wrong video. Let's see. Jeff says, I don't watch Natal anymore, and I'm not interested in rehashing his videos. Either you were in the wrong video or he deleted all those comments since then. I remember it was a video where he's standing in a parking area down near Gas Peak. Right, so that's unfortunate. We don't have the actual video or title. Sun says, Les and Scott Natal don't do that. I know them. They're experienced mine divers. Mineshaft divers. This guy is a liar. So Sun is calling Jeff Claw a liar. Now, move on. Jeff Claw says, to answer your direct question about the sword, even aside from the bizarre claims about Kenny's loop hike, I simply compare it to what I would do if I found such an item in the area. I would consider it very important evidence, and after documenting it in a video on here, I would take it to the police for further investigation. I would do that because I wouldn't have any fear that I myself was planting false evidence into a missing person case. Failing to submit such real evidence is suspicious in itself. As I said, Scott Natal said he was going to make an attempt to reach out to the Veach family, but that didn't seem to work out, I guess. Al, I don't get it. Will admit up front, however, I have not watched any videos on his sword tent find. With that being said, why would anyone turn over this sword to the police? For what reason? How would this possibly have anything to do with the Kenny Veach case as evidence? People find stuff hiking all the time and typically don't turn it into police. So with no connection to Kenny Veach, it would be considered nothing more than trash unless the person found it had some interest in collecting it. I simply cannot make any connection to suspicion or suspicious behaviour due to not turning it into police as an object found whilst hiking. Jeff Claw says it is a weapon that was supposedly found 100 yards off of Kenny's hike route in the middle of nowhere. because not many people go there, so why would they take a sword? It's not like it was a random hiking stick. It had been named sword killer, murder weapon, etc. Very different circumstances from what you describe as random hiking junk. And as well, Al, the reason why it had some kind of appliance to the Kenny Veach case is because not only is it within the area where Kenny Veach hiked, not far from, but what was found with the sword was a tent, and it was torn up. Now, Kenny Veach said himself that he was going out there on an overnight hike, so he was going to stay there the night. He was going to camp out there. So his backpack, his tent, I guess, taken with him, because the girlfriend said, didn't mention anything about it being left at home, so it was supposedly taken with him, his tent. So if you just so happen to be on the lookout and search for Kenny Veach years later, you come across a tent and you may think, well, not many people hike here, not many people camp here. The last person I can think of, Kenny Veach. Oh, there's a tent here. Oh, it's orange. Oh, it's the same colour as what we see in past photos of Kenny Veach's hikes. Is there a link, possibly? You get what I'm saying? So you can type one thing with another to suggest. Sun says, I hope Les and Scott Jew your lame arse. Oh, I think what Sun meant here is Sun is hoping that Les and Scott Natal will sue Jeff Clark. Oh, God, Jeff Clark, you're going to get sued. I think Jay Silvials and the Penguin Army is the least of your worries. Now, Dan Javier, I have the sword. Please leave me alone. I'm okay, Kenny Veach. So this person is a prime example of a bullshitter, default profile, wanting attention, moving on quick. Dude, so boring. What's boring is your repetitive nature of BS and returning back constantly and contributing nothing to the channel and contributing nothing to the case of value. So, bye-bye. David Bell, ding ding. Someone has the sword hidden away for some reason. Someone. So you basically mean Scott Natal because he was the one that took it away. And what, you think that he's making excuses now because he's actually hiding it? Smooth Fishing says, I don't think Scott would have planted anything. If I found it, I wouldn't have took it to the police for the reason Kenny would have never have hiked with a walking stick with a sword in it because it's not practical for him to carry it. We have seen in his videos he would use the very light walking sticks, the hiking poles, the ones which give Jay Silvials PTSD flashbacks. He didn't need a sword because he carried a pistol. Also, there isn't any way possible that the tent could have been Kenny's. It would have been gone years before Scott found it. People really think the sword is key evidence, has lost their mind. Not very smart that Kenny would carry something like that. Why are we saying that the tent isn't Kenny's? So you're saying there isn't any way possible that the tent could have been Kenny's. It would have been gone years before. Why is that? Smooth Fishing, because of the wind, it would have blew it away. Is that what you mean? I mean, is there a small chance that if it was Kenny's tent, it was actually elsewhere, but because of the wind, it blew it away, and then it ended up going into that rock crevice, catching onto the rocks and stayed there some time, and that's how it got torn? Maybe not, because there were cans found in that little small rock crevice, almost like a hideout, a camping spot. So maybe the tent was always there, like, for camping, but did Kenny Veach put it there himself or another hiker later on? Well, that would still open up questions, wouldn't it? Because who else would be going out there and for what reason? And why have they not come forwards? You know, this hiking area has been put on the map by Kenny and reinforced by the hikers and investigators and online researchers along the way since. So even if that sword intent has no appliance to Kenny placing it there, and it's just merely a coincidence of another hiker going out there, the questions are, what is that unknown hiker doing in that area and for what reason, right? Because most of the people that have gone out there since Kenny Veach, they've been searching for the cave, they've been searching for Kenny. You might get some exceptions, but we got to understand this area is so desolate, empty and dangerous, and most people wouldn't bother even going there. They go there for a purpose, a true reason. You have to have a good enough reason to be going out there so it's worth your time, because it's a high risk, high reward situation, I guess. Maybe it be for a challenge or trying to find something. What was that unknown hiker doing out there? Was that tent and sword by Eric, the hiker, in 2016 then? See? All these different mysteries it can tail off to. You can have a big mystery, And then within the big mystery, you've got a sub-mystery. Then within that sub-mystery, you've got sub-leads, which lead to alternative theories and mysteries, which are a mystery. It's almost endless. Now, Jeffrey says, well, I'll add my 2 cents worth, and that's all it is, my speculation. I may regret it, but here it goes. My view, how long is this? Whew, okay, it's a bit long. It's getting warm as well because of the weather, but we'll keep on reading. My view about the tent and sword discovery is that Scott found them where his video shows it, and it wasn't staged. That they were planted is a serious allegation to make, or simply without proof. I can't say one way or another. It all comes down to taking his word for finding them. I've never met Scott or Les in person, just through their videos. From what I've seen, though, they both seem honest and trustworthy to me. My impression is they enjoy what they're doing, hiking around, exploring old mines, and making videos so others can enjoy their adventures too. If they were to happen to come across a clue that helped solve the disappearance of Kenny Veach or someone else, then they would be extra satisfaction. If Scott makes a few bucks from YouTube, then that's just some gas money. What was the motive to go to all the effort to drag that stuff up there, plant it, then come back and film it, and act surprised? For some extra views, I don't see it as worth the effort. True. Scott's videos aren't as polished and well edited as some others, but that adds to their authenticity, I think. The only thing that draws anyone to click on the video where he finds the stuff is the title. There is no picture of the sword and tent with a flashy banner in the thumbnail to be clickbait, just some cactus flowers. It did get a lot of views, but it wasn't exactly hyped intentionally. That's true, right? That's true, because I think the title of his video was Clues at Cow Camp Road, or on Cow Camp, I don't know. I'm sure Cow Camp or Cow Corral was mentioned in the title, but he definitely called it Clues Found. So it wasn't that flashy, it wasn't that clear. I mean, arguably, the video that I made where I had a thumbnail and the title all about the tent and sword, that was more flashy, that was more hard-hitting. Now, could people say that was bad? No, it's just because that was the only thing I was focusing on for that video, because that was the theme of the day. As for Scott Natal's hike, it was a collection of his footage on that day and what he came across and everything else. By making it raw and unedited in a way, as raw as it can be, and people may not like that because it's lacking the polished factor, you see more. You get a better perspective of things and you might pick up on stuff no one else does. When it's very short and edited, you're not going to see everything which they see. So that's the positive with Scott Natal. Now, if Scott Natal truly wanted to capitalise off that finding, he would have titled it differently and he would have actually changed the thumbnail to something more enticing, yet he didn't. So there's that to take in mind. My thinking is that this tent and sword walking stick have nothing to do with the case, or Kenny. They were stashed there by someone else. There have been other finds of stuff cached in those mountains. SB found some water hidden. Water hidden, but where? Aquachiga, I think, discovered tools in that little stone shelter, and there was a video that showed tubs of canned food in an old mine. May have been Scott's video. But it depends how old that canned food is, because if it's really old, well, you can just say it's people mining in the area way back in the past, right? You can use like common sense there. There's lots of people who are convinced that an apocalypse is imminent and are stashing stuff away. I could also see someone just wanting to get away from it all for a few days once in a while, hiding the tent there so it would be handy. It's just because of the area, of all places you could go and hike, such a dangerous, desolate place, time consuming as well. You know, you look at Las Vegas, you look at all the mountains and open area, and there'll be places off the beaten pathway which are less dangerous, but why this area do people go? There needs to be a strong reason to do so, and people could say, no, anyone can go. Yeah, but when you look back, not many have gone. That's the factor. I mean, you could say there's other items out there, so it would suggest lots of people have been out there, but no, some of it will date back to long time. You know, way back in the past, some of it could be Asian. There's that to take in mind. When all is said and done, we may never find out what happened to Kenny Veach, but on the positive side, the mystery has provided lots of hours of adventures in the mountains. both for those searching and those watching, and that's not a bad legacy for Kenny. Fair point. Now, if we're talking about the legacy of Kenny, far from the Dylan Rounds legacy, there is some murky water when it comes to Kenny Veach, okay? Because if he did fake his disappearance and stage his hike in some way, there's not much of a legacy there for Kenny Veach, and it makes him look like a bad person and a fraud in a way. Kenny Veach had money issues. Kenny Veach was desperate. One thing could link with another at the time with ideas and actions taken. Drastic. You never know. But you say we may never know what will happen to Kenny. We may never find out. Well, that sounds a little bit regurgitated from all the countless articles we've looked at. Now, maybe, Jeffrey, you haven't seen my old videos, but there is evidence and proof to suggest Kenny Veach is alive, caught on camera, a phone call, a missed call, right? And some other bits and bobs along the way. It might not be good enough for other people out there, but just take it into consideration, okay? Anything else? Son, I know Les and Scott, they would never do that. Why are we including Les Natal in this conversation for planting stuff? At the time of when Scott Natal was out there hiking, he was doing it solo, okay? At least for a certain portion of time, I never knew who Les Natal was because I never saw him in the footage, because Les was, for most part of it, never there on the hike with Scott when searching for Kenny Veach. I saw Les Natal in the videos when it came to the Dylan Rounds case, so we need to make that very clear. What else? A4, well, I did not want to be rude already, long time ago, but I'm convinced all of a sudden changes and information is just planting and trolling. Same with those that contact you. Well, we've seen that pattern with the people reaching out. There are genuine people that reach out where they think they've seen something, and then I give my thoughts, where people give video ideas. That's natural, that's genuine, that's positive. But the ones that claim to be experts that come out of the woodwork, of course, yeah, it can be very hit and miss. But the thing is, A4, is you never know, the time may come where something serious is mentioned and it needs to be acknowledged. Because what the problem is in life, a lot of jokers can come and go and mess around and waste people's time. And then eventually you develop that pattern of, right, same thing over and over again, same BS, different day. Let's brush it aside. Let's brush it aside. Let's push it away. And then what happens is that one time a serious person comes on in, but you're so done with all that rubbish that you end up pushing them away. You've pushed away key information. So as bad as the situation is at times, you just got to try and hold it together. We got Johnny, shout out to Johnny. Jeff Clark, again, the remoteness of the area and the very, very few hikers that ever go there makes the sword very important, if real. Exactly, Jeff Clark. It's not like it was found off the side of a hidden forest trail, a tourist area. It was taken to that remote location by someone or some people for some reason. If real, the police should have been given it for further investigation. Exactly. Now, this is where we address Son's comment. Already been vocal down below, I understand. Hopefully, Son, you're still watching. If Son isn't watching or doesn't know about this video or switched off beforehand, if there's anyone watching right now, there's the username or the tag handle. Be sure to tag them and just let them know my response, because it is important. There has been a misunderstanding. I'll read out Son's comment first and then I'll analyse the situation. I might analyse it on the spot as well if need be. WarLike Raf with an E. Okay. I know the Natal brothers, Les and Scott. So you say that you know them on a personal level, in real life or online? Let me know, Son. I'm very interested. How long have you known the Natal brothers for? Couple of years? Many years? Or more so recently? So, in other ways of putting it, Son, I came across you within the Dylan Rounds case, 2022 onwards, okay? Within the Dylan Rounds case, Les Natal and Scott Natal covered it and hiked when searching for Dylan, okay? But when did you come across Les and Scott Natal? Did you first come across them in the Dylan Rounds case? Or do you know them from way back in the past? If so, I would understand why you claim to know them more and why you're defending them and why you say that they're good people. I would understand. See, the thing is, son, I knew Scott Natal 2020 onwards. Scott Natal first appeared on YouTube because of the Kenny Veach case. His channel set up in the name of the Kenny Veach case and search for Kenny and the M Cave. It was because of my videos, son, which in a way kind of inspired him to do his own investigation on the case. And that's what then led to other people going out there like Aquachigger, Mystery Hikes, etc. Because of my consistency covering the case, or at least, well, maybe you can't even call it consistency by my standards today, but in the past, because I was doing a range of different videos, thinking outside of the box, it attracted a range of different people and hikers that wanted to go out there, and Scott Natal appeared. Okay, so that's how I first came across him. So I was aware of Scott Natal and his behaviour, his personality back in 2020 onwards. When did you come across Scott Natal? In 2022 or before 2020? Let me know, because it will make the understanding a lot clearer. Okay? So, Sun says, they are very honest, the most kind, generous men I know. They dive mines for the joy of loving what they do. I'm aware. Les, Scott, and Alan are dedicated to diving in mines. They have been doing it for decades for the joy of it. Yes, I've heard. They are the real search and rescue men by request. The state of Utah and Nevada have come to them to map out the mines for closure. The areas in question are dangerous, radioactive, and will destroy any four-wheel drive in a season. They are not wealthy, nor do they ask for anything. They have never asked for money, clicks, or views. They do not make money off their searches. Well, Scott Natal does have adverts on his videos, last time I remember. No problem with that, but there could be some kind of monetary gain. Once again, no problem with that, but I'm just making an observation. And I think one thing you've forgotten, son, not that it's a problem, but it's just another observation. Scott Natal did create merchandise. Scott Natal created hats and tops with the M Cave or logo written on it, okay, to make money from it. Now, in the early days when that was introduced on Scott's channel, the sister-in-law, someone who you probably have no clue who they are, but the sister-in-law to Kenny Veach, who's directly reached out to me, okay, with time when providing information on the case, which has been helpful at times. The sister-in-law known as Susan Veach, although not everybody's favourite person or topic, Susan Veach did call out Scott Natal in the early days when it came to the merchandise being created in the name of the Kenny Veach case. It was a misunderstanding at first. Susan Veach thought that Scott Natal was profiting off of it in a corrupt way. But Scott Natal replied back at the time and said, no. I'm creating these tops and items to sell, and then all that money can go towards the Veach family to help them out. Now, I didn't see how that would help the Veach family, especially if some of them are in on Kenny's disappearance, let's put it. And the fact that the Veach family didn't really search as much as volunteers have with time, as you would know, son, because Scott Natal and Les Natal are the real search and rescue, unlike the Veach family. But son, if you've not been around in the Kenny Veach case, you wouldn't understand this, okay? So that's why I need clarity there. But eventually, when Scott Natal explained himself regarding the merchandise, Susan Veach acknowledged him and was okay with it. It was a simple misunderstanding, that was it. Now, fast forward later, there was a comment by Scott Natal stating that with selling the tops and the hats, no one could be bothered to buy them. So he scrapped the idea. He stopped. So that was the end of that. Okay, son? Fast forward onwards, a year or so onwards, then Scott Natal created new merchandise, more around him and his own personality, with key sayings like, okay, like how he would in his videos. And I think even like a sketch of him descending into a mine shaft, he was selling those shirts, and I think they're still available to buy. and there's a link on his channel. What's the reason behind it? Who knows? Maybe money possibly goes towards exploration and paying for petrol. Well, I'm sorry, American standards, gas. Okay? But this is the thing. It's not a problem at the end of the day. It's not a problem. But we need to make valid observations with what's happened with time. And if, son, you don't understand it, this should put things into better perspective. Now, moving on. Scott loves taking pictures and videos, but his have actual dangerous content. Well, yeah, not a bunch of gossipy BS. Oh, some of us who care about them encourage them to participate in YouTube because it's interesting to see them cave dive. Right, son, you need to understand this. One of the main reasons why Scott Natal exists on YouTube as a channel and how it all started was because of me and my coverage on the case. Scott Natal commented on my videos in the early days about getting involved in hiking, right? If it wasn't for my coverage, if it wasn't for my focus on the Kenny Veach case and some of the other people too, Scott Natal may have not have created his channel then, more so may have created it later in the name of Dylan Rounds or Susan Powell, okay? So just understand, son, that I am arguably the catalyst, creator and causation of people appearing and creating channels and getting inspired. Not to be said in a narcissistic way, but as a valid observation. Even Jeff Clark, as a witness, will highlight that because of my coverage with time, my dogged and consistent nature on the case and others, it's inspired people. It's led to people becoming very interested within the case or the area and wanted to see it for themselves. And because they're in the area, or at least from the US, they've gone out there, right? Kenny Veach may have put the area on the map. I've carried that flag and kept the case alive. And as you should know, son, just like the Dylan Rounds case. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense there. Now, but that is not why they dive. They would never plant evidence. Whoever this Jeff Clark jerk, you mean Jeff Clark, is making such a defamation of character claim is disgusting. But you repeating it, WarLike Ref, is worse, as you're promoting a lie. I thought you were above that, WarLike Ref. You both owe Les and Scott Natal an apology. My response at the time was, I will be responding directly to you very soon, and that's exactly what I have done, so I will acknowledge that right now. So, son, I am beyond disappointed. My disappointment is immeasurable at this moment, and I hope you're still around to listen. How you've gone off and directed it at me is somewhat unnecessary. So I'll just read it again for everybody watching and those in the chat. Everybody, feel free to listen in and focus right now. It's important. Sun says that with Jeff Clark's accusations of defamation of character is disgusting, but what WarLike Ref has done by repeating it is even worse, and it's seen as promoting a lie. And Sun says, I thought you were above that, and that WarLike Ref needs to apologise to Les and Scott Natal. Is that so? Well, it's time for me to respond. So the reason why I'm disappointed in you, son, is because you've spent quite some time around my channel during the Dylan Rounds case and days of when we, or more so I, had to put up with such BS disruptions, distractions, and attacks on me by the disease-ridden communities and characters and creators out there. And I did make several videos about what they were saying and putting it into perspective. Exactly like what was done within the Kenny Veach case. Now, granted, there is leniency. If for whatever reason, son, you weren't around on my channel back in 2020 up to early 2022 before the Dylan Rounds case, if you weren't around back then, you wouldn't understand my position on things with Scott Natal, okay? We're not bringing Les Natal into this whole corruption thing. It just so happened that Les Natal responded back to my question. Now, what you would understand, son, if you actually stuck around long enough, you would know that Les Natal greatly appreciates and likes my channel. He has given quite a lot of praise and positivity in the past. Les Natal is a good individual and appreciates my videos, which is very good to see. There are comments, there are proof of it on my channel. Les Natal doesn't have a problem with me. As for Scott Natal, a key individual who has never got caught up in drama or conflict, never, exaggerated it in that sense or directly got involved there. He's kept to himself, kept his head down, and probably for good reason, because you see how it goes for other people. Scott Natal has never had a problem with me. And even in the past, when I said to Scott Natal really early on, could I use your footage, a portion of it, I'll credit you to your channel. And Scott Natal said, yep, that's perfectly fine. No issues. Scott Natal doesn't have a problem with me. Les Natal doesn't have a problem with me. Les Natal is aware of my videos and my opinion on things within the case, and even when it comes to these accusations in recent time. Son, if I honestly had to apologize to these people, why didn't Les Natal say it or Scott say it themselves, right? In recent time, when I reached out to Scott Natal's channel, directly asking about these false accusations, if you saw my comment, whether you saw it in my video or on his channel, you would know how I worded it. I was asking simple questions. What happened with the sword? Is it truly lost? And how? How do you lose it? There's nothing wrong with asking that. The next question being, I've heard recently or in recent time, unfortunately, there have been accusations. Accusations, which basically mean claims made by other people with not enough evidence, right? And I'm just simply passing it on to try and get answers from the horse's mouth, and that's not an insult, that's an actual saying, to then put it out there to the public eye so then it can squash any rumours or any BS or reinforce a certain point. You should know, son, when certain procedures have followed within the Dylan Rounds case. What I've done in the Dylan Rounds case is similar to what I've done in the Kenny Veach case. I've looked at BS. I've gave my thoughts on it. I've not gone all in. I don't go down deep rabbit holes because I know how people can get lost in the process. I eliminate that cycle. And when key people reach out because of my repetitive nature and focus on stuff, answers do follow. And with the consistency of coverage, inspiration comes along by other hikers, as we've seen. Maybe not the same influence within the Dylan Rounds case, but absolutely with great confidence and certainty within the Kenny Veach case, okay? So people need to look, listen, learn, research, and go back to the past. Now, with leniency, if an individual like Son was never around in the past on my channel, they wouldn't know my thoughts on the situation, okay? But still, even if you're just basing it off that one video that I did recently, Son, you should know by now how my mind works, how my behavioral patterns are, and how I look at many different points of views, even if it's an unpopular opinion, an unpopular side. We saw it extensively within the Dylan Rounds case, with the disease-ridden humans and cancer out there. The parasites, the delusional idiots, the dipsy-daisy lackadaisical individuals, it all came full circle and we looked at it bit by bit. That's exactly what was done within the that was exactly what was done in the Kenny Veach case, okay? These wannabe experts, these people that seem to know it all, but maybe they don't always back it up, but still listening in, providing it to the general public so people can see it. But in most of my videos, I was criticised for not talking enough based on my true opinion, that I'm just talking too much in general. Shouldn't that be a clear sign, son, that I'm not just plastering it in a full-on hard way? I'm taking it into consideration. And there was a lot of conclusions with time where I basically said, you know what, this and that has happened, that and this has been said, but really, at the end of the day, I don't think it's good enough. I don't think it's enough to convince me yet. If people did the research, they would understand my responses, okay? So, I'll make it very clear, son. When it came to the Kenny Veach case, 99% of the time, whenever Scott Natal's name was brought up about planting stuff, I didn't agree with it, okay? If that makes me look like an idiot, it might do. But in one way or another, I basically defended Scott Natal single-handedly for quite some time. Now, at the end of the day, depending on what happens, if there is like a resolve, if there's any proof to prove this or to prove against it, what I've said with time is that claims can be made, but is there enough evidence to say it was planted? No. Is there enough evidence to say that it was done by Scott Natal in unnatural ways? No. There's no footage, there's no audio. It's just Scott Natal went there, found it, and documented it online. That's all we know, that's all we've seen. Understand, son, you talk about the dangers of what Scott Natal, Les Natal does. Just remember, or at least look back as for research, Scott Natal was actually hiking in even more extreme terrain, okay? Okay, we can acknowledge the mine shafts within the Bald Eagle mountain range and over that way Nevada and maybe loose in Utah as well because there's more mine shafts there. But what Scott Natal did, if we're just talking about ground level, on surface level hiking, some of the most extreme demanding terrain out there, Mojave Desert, Little Jome Canyon, more extreme than certain searches within the Dylan Rounds case, with the exception of the mine shafts, okay? But let me tell you something, son. There was a mine shaft within the Kenny Veach case. Old, rickety, dangerous, death trap. Scott Natal, arguably, was the first searcher out there to descend into that mine shaft with absolutely zero safety equipment. There was no rope, there was no harness, he climbed down the ladder. Even Jeff Clark, quite an experienced hiker with time, who went out there himself years before Scott Natal, years before of weathering. 2016, 2017, Jeff Clark went into the mine shaft with a safety rope and all the protection needed for his safety. Scott Natal went into that mine shaft many years later and many years after Kenny's disappearance with no safety gear. Jeff Clark was shocked. Now, Scott Natal was successful in doing what he did, but it was very risky, very dangerous. So understand that, son, okay? You can argue Scott Natal has been a bit reckless in the past, but he still had it under control. What we also need to acknowledge, it's not a big deal, but if we're talking about being honest and realistic, son, listen in. When Scott Natal was out there searching for Kenny Veach and when he went into the mine shaft, he did take items away. Took them away for his own gain. Is that a problem? Maybe most of the time, no. But there are laws within the area, the DNWR, the desert area, the Mojave Desert. There are laws which prohibit you from taking stuff from the area. Like you're not supposed to fly drones over either because of the military land nearby. There's a range of things you're not allowed to do. It can be quite strict out there. You can't move rocks. If you come across a cave which could be suspicious, you're not allowed to supposedly move anything because it's disrupting nature. You're not allowed to take any Asian items away or any items at all. And that's exactly what Scott Natal did. So you could argue he would have got in trouble there, but he got away with it. Now, it's not like a major problem, but what you can say, there is a pattern in behavior with a person going out there and taking items away. So, tent and sword, whether it's to do with Kenny or not, whether it's planted or not, regardless, the sword was taken away by Scott Natal. And it's not the first time things have been taken away from the area because of the mine shaft. The items taken away from the mine shaft weren't, of evidence to do with Kenny Veach from the looks of it, but still, it's breaking the law. So depending if you're a law-abiding citizen or whatever, or you've got high standards, well, you're neglecting this. But nevertheless, it's not the end of the world. But your outburst, and considering how long you've known me for, 2 years or so within the Dylan Rounds case and the BS that's happened there, and how I've made videos on the BS, giving my thoughts and opinions, that's exactly what I've done in the Kenny Veach case. But clearly, you have not watched those videos to understand my standpoint, my viewpoint on the matter of Scott Natal. Someone has to ask the questions to get the answers. And that's what I did in recent time. The aim of it was just to simply bring up previous questions and skepticism of a certain individual out there, get a response, make a video about it to spread more awareness so more people know what's up, and with an answer attached to it. Because some way or another, down the line, more people will come in and see the comments by Atari or Jeff Clark, and may jump on with it and agree. That can snowball effect, and then many people then are skeptical and suspicious of Scott Natal without an answer. But now, because I've asked the right questions and I received an answer, whether it be people's satisfaction or not, I've made a video highlighting the accusations, the suspicion, the skepticism, and I've also attached it with an answer, something that was long missing before that. So, son, you should understand the process. You should understand the importance. Okay? I might be turning into a bit of an Italian now with my hand signals, but I'm not Italian. I can do an Italian accent there. But that aside, people should know by now how one operates and how videos are made. See, this isn't the first misunderstanding, is it, son? Because it was last time where you kind of having a go, asking and questioning, why is WarLike Raf ignoring you? Making it very personal and direct on you. But the reality was, I can't respond back to everyone at every second, every day, every month, every year. Okay, I might be a YouTuber, but I don't have to respond to every comment. I can't always respond back to every comment. Look at all the other YouTubers out there. You don't see all of them responding to every single comment. The only reason why it's possible to do so in the early days, mid stages, is because there's only so many people leaving comments. But then with time, we're getting busy with videos and making more videos and more people coming in, etc., managing more stuff. You can't respond back to every question, okay? So already there was a misunderstanding and a little bit of entitlement of, why are you ignoring me? Why are you not responding to me? Me. There are many other people out there who may not get replied to, and they don't complain. So why were you? Now, although that was cleared up and you understood, here we are again with another misunderstanding, this time much worse. You're saying that Jeff Clark is displaying slander, defamation of character, and basically you're tying me in with that I'm responsible as well, if not worse. So all the positive stuff you said about me covering the Dylan Brown's case, where there was even more slander, even more defamation of character, and it's one event now, after everything that's happened and what people have been through, now you're saying that I'm a part of the problem. That's very poor. Very, very poor. Okay? Now, obviously the question still comes back. Who do you know more longer? Scott Natal, Les Natal, or WarLike Raf? Who did you come across first and when? I said, if you know Scott Natal, Les Natal 10, 20 years ago, I can understand why you would defend them and why you know them better. But if it's only from 2022 onwards, well then, I know Scott Natal longer than you do. And if by any chance you did know Scott back in 2020 because of the Kenny Veach case, well then you should clearly know better as to the situation right now. Okay? The title of my video back then was to do with accused of planting items. In the title of the video, it was still fairly subdued. It didn't even mention Scott Natal's name. So even that can be seen as a form of respect. I'm not directly throwing his name out there in the title. I mean, you can say the thumbnail, but not everyone will know that thumbnail is of Scott Natal because he has changed with time and it was a different photo. You get what I'm saying? To be honest, I don't even know what the thumbnail was now when I look back. Was it a Scott Natal, a face of him? No, actually, it was like a screenshot of Les Natal with an arrow pointing, which was relevant to say the arrow pointing to this person is the one responding. Okay? Take in mind, can't fit everything in the title. Some of it will be mentioned in the description. You wouldn't know if you didn't look. So that's not my problem. So, anything else to say? Sun says, you should do better, WarLike Raf. You should know better after everything that's happened in the past. But even before that, you should know better yourself. I have a certain procedure and format when it comes to this. And that I have come across Scott Natal a while ago, even before the Dylan Rounds case. Partially because he was inspired by my coverage, and that's why he came about, which was great to see. But also because I saw his hike videos, I saw his personality, his behaviour, natural. I believe I even did a hiker's analysis on Scott Natal. Have you even checked that out? Where I mentioned the strengths, the weaknesses, the pros and cons, the catalyst, the turning point of perspectives, even before the Dylan Rounds case. I exactly showed that in the videos. But you wouldn't know if you didn't watch, or if you didn't click, or you weren't around at the time. If you were around at the time, shame on you. If you weren't around at the time, I can understand why you have a limited mindset and limited knowledge. But if you've based everything off that one video that I've done in recent time, considering you've known me for nearly 2 years or so when covering the Dylan Rounds case, that's very poor judgment skills, jumping the gun. So whilst you're calling me out and saying that I'm also participating in defamation of character, you're not doing yourself any favours yourself. Speaking as some kind of third-party representative, asking and demanding that I should apologise to anyone. No. One does not need to apologise when one wasn't part of the problem in the first place. One was the catalyst of shedding light on the problem, something you should understand when it comes to the Dylan Rounds case. Okay? Now take this in mind, while some people could be triggered by this response, I will respond back accordingly the same way with anyone that spazzes out and acts in an impetuous, egocentric manner. Because this is a serious situation. We're not messing about right now, okay? And when it comes to humans with constant misunderstandings, if you already seen my videos by now, you'd know with constant misunderstandings leads to no solution and endless outcome, okay? These one and done videos are necessary because others out there failed to do that, and it just leads to going round and round in circles. Those humans and any humans in life that constantly go through misunderstandings and never improve on that, and may have trust issues as well, whether it be by their fault or out of their control, but constant misunderstandings lead to constant tension and constant complaints and constant drama, which can just go in circles, and it's not worth one's time. So the bottom line is, and I've mentioned it many times in the past when it comes to the Kenny Veach case, okay? But I'll say it one more time. When it comes to Scott Natal, there is no evidence or proof to say Scott was responsible for planting anything out there. There's only footage of him coming across it. Just like Frank from exploring abandoned mines in unusual places. Of course, you can say items were planted there because some of those items you can buy online. But who's to say Frank planted them there? Maybe someone else did as a prank, and then Frank came across it and took it serious. You never know. But there's no proof of knowing, ultimately. Okay? At least up to now, there's no proof. So, I don't believe Scott Natal planted anything. Okay? I don't think he did. As for the items themselves, do they have any link or appliance to the Kenny Veach case? Unknown. But there are possibilities because of the coincidences and similarities. A tent. Kenny was hiking out there, camping. Well, a tent is needed. Kenny took a tent. So, could be a link there. What about the sword, though? Was there any link there? Only a video I did in the past where it's to do with Kenny attending some kind of Renaissance fair, medieval fair, some kind of sword combat. I had a brief look at that in the past, but you know, you need to check back to look at it, okay? And to be honest, if Sun wasn't around in the Kenny Veach days, on that basis, if Sun wasn't around in the Kenny Veach days back then, they have no right to be talking about the sword intent with zero context or knowledge. Now, once again, if they do know about it and they have done research, well then shame on them because they should know better as for the situation and where things stand. So either way, it's a lose-lose for them, okay? Either they lack the knowledge and only know half the story, or they know it all and they've been around long enough, but they've turned the mind off and only very selective towards certain people that they look up to. Understand, son, in some ways or another, this is a Bob Farrell situation. This is a salty pancake situation in which I aim in a certain direction, whether it be criticizing them, mentioning strengths or weaknesses in a balanced way, or addressing an issue with someone out there, not by me, but what other people have said, and shedding light on it to make more sense, in which at that one time when I look at someone in which viewers or so on my channel or outsiders come across and then get triggered by it because finally their little sunshine, my little sunshine, whatever you call it, has now been put in for questioning time. And I said, I look at everyone and question as many as I can and when needed. So it's not selective, it's not exclusive, it's not a witch hunt, okay? So like, in other words, when I looked at Salty Pancakes, when I looked at Jim Terry, may have critiqued them, gave my thoughts, my opinion, said this information is BS, that's BS. People were perfectly fine with it, no one complained. And then the moment I looked at Bob Farrell, a range of people got triggered because their Lord and Saviour and hero was finally questioned and they didn't like it, but they were perfectly okay with me looking at everybody else. That's biased. Simple as, no way around it. So hopefully, son, you understand this video, you understand the situation, and we'll leave it there. Now, as for other humans out there that see the tone and voice changes, that's just because, you know, change up a little bit. But on top, I know there's observations where people say, ooh, this person is upset. Monotone voice, no tears, not much emotion, deadpan face, pretty self-explanatory there, right? Not emotionally invested in cases to maintain balance and focus where others are blinded by judgment, as we've seen recently. But on top of that, when people do like to do little observations and say something like, ooh, this person is angry, mad, whatever. This is me being calm. So simmer down, impetuous one. Okay? So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, if there is. But yeah, we'll see what happens next and what needs to be focused on next. But make sure to share this video so more people know. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, good night for now.